And Maryland Governor Larry Hogan joins me here now. So what does that mean, cutting off any economic relationship between Maryland and Russia?
Well, so we just, they are kind of symbolic gestures we're taking, but we think it's important to send a message to Russia, every way that we can. So, we had a sister state relationship for 30 some years that was started by, Governor Schaefer back in the 90s. And we just terminated that. We sent a letter to Leningrad yesterday saying because of the incursion into Ukraine that we were no longer going to have that association. I'm sure it doesn't do much to them, but it's a symbol that the people of Maryland are united with the people of America and the world, standing up against Russia and standing with the people of Ukraine.
It may not hurt Russia, but it helps and is a message to Ukrainians who might be living in Maryland, Europeans who might be living in Maryland. And I know you spent some time with them.
Yesterday morning, I went to a Ukrainian Catholic church in the city of Baltimore, which and it was just an incredible experience to let them know that all the people of our state were standing strong with them and to tell them how proud we were of the Ukrainian people and President Zelensky and the bravery that they're showing and that we were standing in solidarity with them. And it was moving. I mean, I was hugging people. There was a lot of tears and handshakes and thank yous, and people are concerned about their loved ones who are in Ukraine. And but I think that it did mean a lot to them that to know that the people of America are there and supportive.
As you know, there's not a lot you can do personally. But the one thing that every American can do at some level is be prepared to sacrifice some. Yeah. So how do you explain that to people in Maryland? How do you persuade them, maybe, that they might need to pay more at the gas pump, that prices may need to go up, and that might be the cost of freedom?
It's interesting. We hadn't been talking about the importance of the region. We really hadn't been, average person wasn't focused on NATO or who was, trying to get membership in NATO. The average person was worried about, doing what they do every day, coming home from work and trying to figure out how to pay their bills. But the coverage of this and the kind of inspirational leadership of Zelensky, people are glued to their television sets. They're watching CNN all day. And people do want to be involved. They saw. I think he's moved public opinion, obviously in the EU and with NATO and in America. I think people are now realizing that fighting for freedom and democracy in any way that we can is important, and we haven't been talking about that for decades.
Any way that we can, though? I mean, you're not suggesting that the United States should be more involved militarily?
No, but I think we ought to take every action we possibly can with respect to sanctions, with respect to providing more military assistance and funding. We've got to back them up, but we shouldn't be sending American troops, and we couldn't get them there anyway. I mean, it's a crazy situation. I'm not sure we have the ability to do certain things right now because we waited too long, and we're not in a strong position. But I think we can do things that can crush Russia and Russia's economy and have them think that this was a big mistake on Putin's part.
Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, it's nice to see you. Nice to see you in person. Sorry it's for this reason, but thank you for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.